Namandam, 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 namandam.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome today to today's Hiroshima Remembrance Service, which commemorates the 77th anniversary of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A special aloha to our guest speaker, Mr. Art Taniguchi, and who came all the way from Hilo with his family, his wife Barbara Taniguchi and his daughter Jennifer Taniguchi. Thank you guys for coming over so early in the morning. This service is being hosted in collaboration with the Kona Hiroshima Kenjin-kai. I'm Claudia Chang, and I'm the president of the Kona Hiroshima Kenjin-kai, and I will serve as your MC today. Before we start, here are a few guidelines. For those of you who are physically present, you may chant and sing while keeping your mask on. For those of you attending via Zoom, please be sure to mute your mics during the entire service unless you have a speaking part. Please be sure that there is a diagonal slash over your mic icon. Assisting Reverend Blaine are Alan Matsumoto, Darren and Lynn Katayama, and Joey Gussman, who are providing technical support. So they're in the back there. They'll work very hard every Sunday service. And Betty Takeoka, who will lead the singing. Thank you, Betty. So let us start the service by all rising for the Vandana and Tisarana, led by Reverend Blaine. Again, for those of you on Zoom, please be sure you have muted your mics, and please chant both the Pali and English parts together with Reverend Blaine.
Namo tassa bhagavata arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Nam, Nam.
Please remain standing. I'm going to read an aspiration. Sadako Sasaki's wish. I will write peace on your wings and you will fly all over the world. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Please be seated. We will now have offering of incense, and we invite all the Sangha members in attendance and everybody in attendance to please come up and offer incense if you wish, starting with the front rows and moving towards the back. And please, we have 2 incense burners, so please use 2 incense burners. Let us now observe a moment of silent meditation.
Namandab, 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 namandab.
Reverend Blaine will now lead the chanting of the sutra, Hymn in the Praise of the Buddha. Words can be found on page 112 in the Jodo Shinshu service book and on the screen.
The Buddha of infinite light and life made vows to embrace all beings equally without exception. These vows promise to create a perfect world where no suffering or evil exists and guides us to supreme awakening. The Sambutsuge, or Hymn in Praise of the Buddha, is a poem from the larger Pure Land Sutra in which Amida Buddha, as a bodhisattva, praises his teacher and makes his 48 vows to establish the Pure Land of enlightenment for the welfare and the happiness of all beings, promising all those who live in fear, I will give great peace. We chant the words of the Buddha in gratitude for these vows made to awaken and to liberate all beings. The hymn in praise of the Buddha. Your face shines in great splendor, boundless, wondrous dignity, such the greatness of your light, beyond all comparison. Brightness of the sun and moon, and the shining many jewels, when compared to your brilliance, seem to us like blackest ink. Tathagata's countenance transcends all comparison. The great voice of awakening resounds through the 10 quarters. Your precepts, learning, effort, meditation, wisdom are virtues beyond all compare, ultimate, supreme, and rare. Your deep meditation has fathomed all the Dharma sea, to the limits and the depths of all things the Buddhas teach. Ignorance, anger, and greed, the world-honored one has none. Like a lion among men, measureless your great virtue. Vast are your great virtuous deeds, wisdom deep and so sublime. Your radiant, luminous light shakes all the world's foundations. When I become a Buddha, equal to the Dharma King, I will transcend birth and death, liberating all beings. My giving, discipline, mind, precepts, patience, and effort, meditation and wisdom shall be supreme, unsurpassed. I will attain Buddhahood, everywhere fulfill my vow, bringing to all those in fear great peace and tranquility. Though there are myriad Buddhas, beyond measure, beyond count, and great sages numberless, like the grains of Ganges sands, I will honor each of them, equally accepting none. Even more importantly, I will seek the supreme way, even though all Buddha worlds are countless as Ganges sands, even though all lands and realms are boundless without measure. Yet my light shall reach them all, and illumine every place. Such shall be my perfect work, such my power infinite. When I attain Buddhahood, my land will be first and best, place of practice transcendent, its people sublime and rare, land equal to nirvana, beyond all comparison, with pity for everyone, I will carry all across. All who come from 10 quarters to be born into my land, to attain pure joyful mind, peace and great tranquility. Be my witness, Buddha, please. Confirm my sincerity. Now that I have made my vows, I will strive to fulfill them. Buddhas of the 10 quarters, with your wisdom unhindered, may all of these honored ones know my deepest intention, even though my body must bear great pain and suffering. I will persevere and strive patiently without regret. Naman equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namanab, 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 namandab, namandab, namandab.
Please rise for the Gata Living Gratefully. Words can be found on the handouts and on your screen. Please sing along with Betty.
Okay, we're going to be singing a cappella today. Okay. Let's all live in harmony, trying to live as one. All of us together always, living life with Buddha's love. Hand in hand we move along. Let's all live in peace. Strive to be the best we can, living gratefully. Kindness to every living thing, showing our gratitude. Loving all our friends and family, showing thanks for all they do. Hand in hand we move along. Let's all live in peace. Strive to be the best we can, living gratefully.
Thank you, Betty. That was very nice. Please be seated. So today, it is an honor for me to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Art Taniguchi. He is the Honorary Consul General of Japan at Hilo, a position that he has held since 2010. He is currently serving in his third 5-year term. Art is a very active member of the Hompang Honganji Hilo Betsuin, having served as its immediate past president among many leadership positions in the many Japanese civic organizations in Hilo. He is also community-oriented and has been the past president or director of the Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Hawaii, the Japanese Community Association of Hawaii, the East Hawaii Hiroshima Kenjin-kai, Crime Stoppers Hilo, and Hawaii Island Chamber of Commerce. He also currently serves as the president of the Urasenki Hilo Association. Art's career has always been in the banking and financial field. He previously worked for Avco Financial Services in Hawaii, Japan, and California for 16.5 years, and also was vice president of Pioneer Federal Savings Bank for 3 years. Recently, he was the senior vice president and regional manager of Bank of Hawaii, from which he retired in 2018 after 27 years. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Art Taniguchi.
Thank you, Claudia. Good morning, everyone. I'll put my glasses on so I can see. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces here this morning. We used to come when our kids were young, they wanted to be perfect attendance every week, so they would come here when we were in Kona and mainland. We'd try to stop into one of those temples and everything. But I think the last official time we came was when we brought Takamiyama to Kona. And many of you came and met him here. He had a great time when he visited, and he's such a gentleman. You know, it was just a pleasure to have him visit us over here on the Big Island. You know, when Claudia reached out to Wayne Miao and myself to see if we could be a guest speaker for the service, you know, I figured, oh man, she must have called everybody and then finally scraped the bottom of the barrel and asked us. But, you know, at that time, we were in the middle of this fundraising effort for the Sadako Legacy Project. And, you know, of course, you all know the story of Sadako. But basically, Bishop Matsumoto, who's a Kona boy, was contacted by Sadako's nephew, Yuji Sasaki, and he wanted to do a documentary film on Sadako's life, as well as put a monument with an eternal flame here in Hawaii. The documentary was going to take into account interviews from Hawaii side as well as the Japan side, yeah. And some of the interviews have already taken place. So they asked Bishop for some help. So he kind of pulled myself and Wayne Miao from Honolulu to assist in a fundraising effort. We did from Oahu and the Big Island only. We didn't do Maui or Kauai. But fortunately, we were able to hit our goal. And we wanted to thank Kona Honganji as well as their members and the members of the community for your support. Really appreciate it. You know, although I'm one of the bottom of the barrel speakers, it's very humbling and an honor to be asked to speak to you today. You know, you have a fine temple here. You have a fine new minister in Reverend Blaine. You know, the first time I met him and actually heard him speak was at my first Gisekai, or one of the first Gisekais in Honolulu. He was the guest speaker or the morning speaker at the service. And I thought he was from the mainland. You know, he was so articulate and everything. So I went up to him, introduced myself, and said, wow, you know, you did a terrific talk. And, you know, then he told me, oh, I'm from Hilo. and then he goes, oh, my mother's name is Elsie. Now, probably most of you folks don't know Elsie, but Elsie Higa was like a longtime Bank of Hawaii. She like ran our Waikea branch. And so, you know, what a small, small world. And Reverend Blaine's auntie, Joyce Kaitoku, was one of my closest colleagues at Bank of Hawaii all the way through my career. So, you know, it's really a pleasure to come and speak with you today. So instead of digressing more, let's get started. On August 6, 1945 at 8:15 a.m. Japan time, the first atomic bomb in history was detonated over Hiroshima. On August 9th, a second atomic bomb was detonated over Nagasaki. These bombs caused tremendous damage and casualties and were the only atomic bombs used against humanity. Prayers are made every year on the anniversary dates of these two tragic events around the world, and in the name of peace, and that, you know, these types of weapons will never again be used against humanity. You know, and I was thinking of what I should speak about today. I think, you know, most of us kind of know that the bomb, you know, tragically was dropped in Hiroshima, and the damage it caused and casualties. So I thought, instead of that, maybe what I'll do is kind of share some of my personal stories that I've heard personally with our family and friends. My dad, as many of you know, was raised in Hiroshima, but came to Hawaii before the war. But we have relatives that survived the war. You know, as an example, my father's cousin, Koji, was an elementary school student. And, you know, I met him when I was small, and, you know, I was elementary time, but he was already an adult. And basically he told me, yeah, he was in the schoolyard playing, and, you know, the bomb, as you know, was dropped by parachute. And so it exploded in the air. So he said, after it exploded, he said it was like snowflakes falling down. And, you know, when the snowflakes, you know, when it hit your skin, then it burned, yeah? So he said, you know, and then of course, as you know, there was great damage and everything else. But basically, for him, when I first met him, he was jolly, big, husky, jolly. He had several children, married. None of them had any illnesses until maybe he hit his 70s. Then he contracted leukemia. And for the most part, he had a normal life, good life, but the last couple of years was bad. But I think for him, I always knew him as a jolly guy, joking, big, husky guy, and laughing, and very kind to me the numerous times that I had seen him. My great-grandmother, when I first went back to Japan as a kid, was still alive, and she recounted too that during the war, of course, food was very scarce here in Hiroshima already after the bomb. And so even the grass next to the railroad tracks, on the side of the tracks, there was no grass because people would pick that and eat for food because, again, food was very scarce. In 1999, our family went on a conference to Japan, and then we went to Hiroshima to visit relatives, and we had a memorial service at our family temple in Hiroshima. It's in a place called Jigozen. It's used to be country, now it's suburb of Hiroshima City, close to Miyajima side. And so the reverend over there is this young man, but his father was the retired reverend, and he wanted to conduct the service for us. So Jennifer was young yet, and my mom came with us as well. And so the reverend shared at that time that his family, in Japan, the temples are run by family, yeah? So in other words, generation to generation. But anyway, the same family had been doing this temple for over 500 years. And I thought that was amazing, So I shared this story the other week with, we're in a meeting in Hilo Honganji with Reverend Tomioka, who's Puna Honganji, Reverend Kamuro, who's Hilo, as well as our Rimbang head minister, Takahashi. Those three ministers' families, temple started in the 1600s. I mean, that is amazing. And they're saying they're the whatever generation or whatever. And usually the ones that come here from Japan aren't the oldest son, because usually the oldest son has to take over. But I thought, of course, that is something else, but it's just amazing how that kind of, generations can perpetuate their family temples. Anyway, the Reverend shared that during the war, the bells that we have here, the temple bells, the temples all had to turn the bells over to the government, so they could make bullets or whatever. So they didn't have any bells anymore. And so he said, of course, after the war, they didn't have a bell, but they were so appreciative that actually my dad's uncle, Koichi Taniguchi, who started KTA over here, they donated the bell to our family temple in Hiroshima. So their bell is kind of high. So they made all of us climb up the steps, including my mother, and to ring the bell. And they were so happy, and they made us read the back of the bell. There was inscribed, into the bell, the names of Koichi, of course, his wife, Tanio, and my cousin Barry's dad, the oldest son's name. So the three names were inscribed on the back of the bell. But they were so appreciative that they could get one bell when they had nothing. And those bells, of course, are expensive. Today it might be way more expensive, but even back then I think it was expensive. So anyway, at that time, they did the service, and all in Japanese, so my wife and kids couldn't understand most of what was going on. But then he presented us with this shikisho here. He gave my mom one, and he gave me one. And this is in 1999, and never, of course, I opened it, looked at it, but that was about it. And my mom, unfortunately, when we came back that week, she passed away. So one went with her when we cremated her, I put into her casket. But the other one I had all these years. And then when I served as Honganji president, Hilo Honganji president, a few years ago, maybe about 4 years ago, took him out for the first time to use it. And so I'm wearing this at the convention, Gisekai convention in Honolulu. And Reverend Hironaka, He's one of our reverends. He used to be a young one in Hilo. Now I think he's in, where is he? In Maui or something, yeah? Lahaina. Okay, so anyway, he comes up, he said, where did you get this shikisho? So I said, oh, our family temple minister gave us this in 1999. Apparently, this was a commemorative 50-year anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. So during that anniversary, all the ministers that were from Hiroshima got this. So the Reverend was nice. And I didn't know until Reverend I told me that. So, I figured it was appropriate that I wear this one today too, because, it was like, wow, how amazing. But all of them, including like Reverend I, Reverend Sogas from there, Reverend Munetos from Hiroshima, they probably all got one, two back, probably 20-something years ago, and it was 50th anniversary. And also, at that time, he shared with us, he says, yeah, they had this big tree that was kind of rotting already, an old tree in their yard. So rather than, they had to cut it down, but rather than just discard it, he said, mottainai, in other words, it's wasteful to just throw it away. So they made nenjus out of it. So this is one of them. And then, so they gave us this, and then it has the name of the temple, yeah, on top. So it's like, wow, all of these things kind of relate back. They're kind of related. And I thought I'd share that with you this morning. After that, we visited the Peace Park and Atomic Bomb Museum in the city, Hiroshima City, which I'm sure many of you have visited. And we went along with my dad's cousin. And for personal reasons, all those years, she never visited the museum or the park. However, because my mom was with us, she decided to come. And then she gave us her first-hand account, because she's also a survivor of the bombing of that fateful day. Yeah? So basically what happened, she said, she was washing dishes, and of course the bomb went off, so the glass shattered and it went inside her throat over here. So she had to have like 3 operations to finally get all of the different, the glass out of her throat. But she survived. She wasn't burned or anything. Her brother, of course, Koji, the one I mentioned earlier, that was healthy. He was a school child, but he was burned really bad. And I see some young ones here, so I didn't want to go into the gross details of his thing, but he survived. He was on his back for 1.5 years, and finally, was able to come up and live mostly a normal life. But anyway, she was telling us about these, horses or whatever dead animals coming, flowing down the river. And those of you that went to the Peace Park, it's nice, sandy kind of ground. And then, so we were there, and then she said, this area here was a mass grave, so all these dead bodies were just piled up over there. So they had to do a mass cremation, and that's where we're standing. And then she said, and everybody, at that time they were yelling for water. So there's lots of water fountains in the Peace Park. If you visit, then you're going to notice that. And it's like coming from somebody that was there, didn't want to go because I guess personal reasons. But then she shared that with us. She said, wow, so it brought a different perspective to us as we were touring the facilities. What happened next is, as we're coming out of the museum, right as you're exiting, right before you come out, there's a display of a young elementary school boy, his uniform, and he passed away in the blast. And she goes, oh, that boy was Koji's classmate. So that boy passed away, but her brother survived, So, it's just one of those things that, is unfortunate. So anyway, also, when you're coming out of the museum, right before you exit, there's a book that you can put any kind of comments you want there before you leave. And people from all over the world visit the museum. And, really, when you think about it, it's like they overwhelmingly mentioned that you shouldn't have nuclear weapons in the world, never use this kind of weapons. So most of those comments from people all over the world are state that, you know. So when you think about it, here we had my dad's cousin, took us to the museum or accompanied us to the museum after how many years of not wanting to do that for whatever reason. I think it gave her some closure at that time, finally, that, okay, she went there, went through the museum and everything. And so it gave her a bit of closure. So after that, what happened was she volunteered to be a docent at the museum. And so, in Japan, they always have these school excursions. So what happens is when the students come, then she can talk to them and give them their firsthand account of her experiences during the atomic bomb. But I think, these are just some of the stories that I personally have heard, from people there, as well as, from our background in Hiroshima. But I just wanted to share that because I figured I might as well do that rather than go over Sadako's story and everything else. In 2013, Sadako's older brother, came to Pearl Harbor. I think many of you heard it on the news. I was really privileged to have been able to attend that ceremony. It was a very touching ceremony in which the brother presented one of the cranes that Sadako had folded to the Pearl Harbor Museum at the Arizona Memorial. And what happened was, it was a tiny one. It's only about 1 centimeter big. So there's an exhibit with a light shining on it, and it's a permanent exhibit now at Pearl Harbor. But in Mr. Sasaki's speech, he mentioned the pain and suffering that his country had placed on America, as well as, of course, his country suffered with the atomic bomb. However, he said he hopes that this little gesture in the name of peace can bring closure to both sides and bring peace to the world. So I thought that was a really good speech that he gave at that Arizona Memorial. I was kind of looking up certain things when we were doing the Sadako Legacy fundraising. And apparently there were several cranes that he had donated to other parts of the world in the name of peace. And something interesting is that he said, during the time she was in the hospital, they didn't have origami paper like we have now. So in Japan, they have, their medicine. Most of the medicine is powdered, and then they have it folded inside paper, yeah? So she was using that paper, any kind of paper, but even that paper to fold a crane. So they weren't all uniformly the same size or whatever. But whatever she could, she would use to fold. And that was the first time I heard that one, and I was kind of taken aback by that as well. So, it was a good thing. It came, went. 2 countries now are allies. And I think, in the name of peace, there's all kinds of wars going all over the place. But when you look at the devastation these types of things cause, and you have to take some time to kind of look back and say, well, maybe we shouldn't be having too many of these types of things and killing people and humanity. But I think overall, my message today is that I appreciate the opportunity to come in and share some things with you folks today. But also, let's remember what Sadako, her story stood for, and what that story has become internationally. And that is the story of peace around the world and harmony. And I think you have that peace kanji over there, right around the corner there in your temple. So thank you very much for having me today. I hope you have a nice day, and let's all pray for peace around the world. Namo Amida Butsu.
Well, thank you very much, Art. And despite what you say, yourself and Wayne Meow, you folks were on our top of our list to ask to come speak to us. You guys were not the bottom of the barrel. And I hope one day, Wayne would be able to come and be our speaker too. But thank you very much. And thank you very much for sharing your family story. I think that's a good way for us to share, remember, and not make the mistakes of the past. And I'm sure a lot of us, our families, we have stories to share. And I think it's important that we learn and we try to share and try to capture and memorialize these stories. And Kona Japanese Civic Association, we're writing another old-time Kona story book. And, we have the opportunity to share our stories. And I know, Mr. Como, I think Carol talked to you about that book. So, it's a good way for us to share, remember, and learn. So thank you very much, Art. And right now, they have paper cranes for our future project that's going on. If you go to their website, Paper Cranes for Our Future, it's an international program where you can go and share your message of peace with the world. So if you have a chance, go online, Paper Cranes for Our Future, and please share your peace messages. Thank you. And again, thank you so much, Art. Okay, so now we are going to do the Eightfold Path to Happiness. That was part of our handouts. And we have our Kenjinkai member as well as a church member, Shirley Matsuoka, who will lead us in the unison reading of the Eightfold Path.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. The Eightfold Path to Happiness. The teachings of the Buddha help us to understand the oneness of all life, to lead us in the right direction. The Buddha provided us with the Eightfold Path. So now let's all, you can repeat after me. Number one, right views, to keep free of prejudice and superstition, and to see the true nature of life. Right thoughts, to turn our minds away from violence and hatred. Right speech, to refrain from harmful talk and to use our words wisely. Right conduct, to see that our deeds come from peace and goodwill, to grow every day in the Buddha's teachings. Right livelihood, to try to earn our living in such a way that we avoid causing suffering. Right energy, to use our energies to promote the overcoming of ignorance and destructive desires. Right mindfulness, to cherish a good mind, for all that we think and do has its roots in the mind. Right meditation, to study the teachings of the Buddha and to practice them to the best of our abilities. May the presence of the Buddha, who said that he would live in his teachings, be our guide. May we follow this path until we too realize nirvana. Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you very much, Auntie Shirley. With the Zoom, we were so lucky that she's able to participate with us. She cannot be here physically, but at least, we can see her and tell her, aloha, Auntie Shirley. Okay, we will now conclude this service with the singing of the Gata Nembutsu. Please rise. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Please sit down. I forgot the offertory. Did I miss it someplace along the line? Okay, thank you. We'll now, Helen Nagata will do the offertory presentation. Okay, thank you, Helen. Now you may please rise for the Gata, singing of the Gata Nembutsu. Please be seated. So this concludes today's Hiroshima Remembrance Service. And here are some announcements. So the upcoming schedule of online and services and events. So Reverend Blaine sent out a Konahonganji weekly update email on Friday, August 5th. Please check your email and be sure to read it for upcoming services, useful information, reminders, and interesting virtual links for a host of online Buddhist education events, as well as other topics of interest, including hurricane preparedness and ongoing information on COVID-related issues. Our annual chili sale fundraiser in collaboration with Sandy's Drive-In has begun, and most of you should have received your tickets in the mail by now. The tickets are $11 for 1.5 pounds of frozen chili. So please help support this fundraiser by purchasing them for yourself or selling them to your family and friends. And please submit your money or unused tickets to the church by Monday, August 15th. And mahalo for your support. Our 125th celebration is coming up very soon, like in a couple months, the weekend of October 15 and 16. As part of the celebration, please consider the following. Purchasing an ad in our souvenir booklet. Ads are not limited to businesses only. Personal ads can also be submitted. So you can purchase an ad for your family. You can purchase an ad in memory of your parents or your grandparents. You can participate in the exciting time capsule project by adding a memento or message that Sangha members 50 years from now will discover. So one of the things I'm telling, like my grandson, he's 5 years old. Of course, he's not going to write it, but he might, the parents might want to write a message to his 50-year-old self. I think teenagers, like, young adults, they may write a message to themselves 50 years from now and say, hey, this is what life was like now. And, what is it like for you now, 50 years later? But that's something, kind of exciting. And Darren Katayama is in charge of that project. We also have cookbooks, wall clocks, and insulated bags that are available for purchase. And I think this is kind of exciting. We're going to have a Bon Dance and a craft fair on Saturday, October 15th. So it's going to be the first Bon Dance in 3 years since COVID. And on October 16th, we're having our service, but we're also having a Chigo parade. And we're having a luncheon, and we're also going to have affirmation rites. So if anybody's interested in any of those things, please keep in mind that all of that is coming up, and information is going to be sent out very shortly. Our next hybrid service will be held on August 21st, and it will be a regular Dharma family service. We also have free COVID home test kits that are still available in the conference room. And you may pick up as many boxes as you need. So after refreshments today, there are the COVID test kits, so please help yourself. And this is a reminder, the free workshop on advanced healthcare directives will be held today from 3 to 4:15. And if you haven't registered yet, just show up in the temple a little early and Reverend Blaine will register you. Is there any other announcements from anyone or Reverend Blaine?
Hi, aloha, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our third annual Hiroshima Remembrance Service. Thank you to Claudia and the Hiroshima Kenjin Kai for providing the refreshments and for helping us to coordinate the service today. Big mahalo to Art Taniguchi for offering your message this morning. Thank you for driving over from Hilo. It's good to see you again. We are reminded that war and the cost of war, there's the human side to it, and which I think Art shared quite beautifully, that it's not just the larger things related to war and to these larger things in the world, but it's the human cost, it's the human impact, and a reminder that each of us, right, as the Buddha teaches through our thoughts, through our words, and through our actions, have a responsibility to live in a mindful way, in a way that, as we was reminded in the Eightfold Path to Happiness, right? We are responsible every day by what we do and how we are in the world. So just a reminder, please, as we move forward, as we think of the war in Ukraine, as we think of all the other conflicts happening in our world today, even our own country, let's think about how we are and how we should be in the world. guided by the Buddha's teachings. So again, thank you everybody for being here and for being part of this Sangha. Mahalo.
Thank you, Reverend Blaine. Does anybody else have any other announcements? If not, again, thank you very much, Art, for driving over, being our guest speaker today. And to the members of the Kona Hiroshima Kenjin-kai, thank you very much for your presence here today. Thank you very much for the delicious refreshments I know that we're going to enjoy. And to our Sangha, thank you for your physical and virtual attendance. For those of you on Zoom, there will be a short talk story time. Just click on the leave button when you are ready to sign off. Those of you here today, please enjoy the refreshments provided by the members of the Kona Hiroshima Kenjin-kai, which we are very grateful. And they will be served outside of the conference room. And one last reminder, please remember to vote, get vaccinated and/or boosted, and stay safe. We look forward to seeing you in person or online at the future services. Mahalo, everybody.
Naman.